We are not your mothers. You have been weaned from the breast of a woman for years, yet you come to us wounded and half-filled with promises you can only keep half the time, trying to suckle our sense of self dry.
Pull up, I pull up, pull up, pull up, I pull up, I pull up.
Coucou, what's up? Bienvenue, it's Kadija, aka the musingknomad, and I'm back again. And today we are going to have a fruitful conversation, a fruitful discussion, I hope, and hopefully an engaging dialogue. And we're going to talk about black men are trash. Okay? So, black men are trash. Let me explain. Okay? Before y'all start getting the rapist Kelly like mad and want to cry and say, all that, chill out. Let me explain. Okay? We're going to break some stuff down and we're going to get to the nitty gritty of black men are trash. Now, generally speaking, men are trash. And yes, not all men. But men are trash, generally speaking. But black men are a specific type of trash. They're the trashiest of trash. And I say that because of every ethnicity, every ethnic group that I'm familiar with or others that I've seen. I've never seen any other group apart from black men that will willfully denigrate, disrespect their women. None other group I've seen does that. If you know of any, please let me know below. And this is something that they do, black men tend to do as a collective. And when we're talking about black men, this conversation is specific for cisgendered heterosexual black men. Okay? And we're gonna start off the video by breaking down some stuff, and then we're gonna go into more detail. Okay? So I have a few pages of things noted, and hopefully this is gonna be a succinct conversation, and also something I want to point out. Okay? Because when you guys do start getting in your feelings and you're being questioned and you can't handle that, and then you want to be aggressive in a sense of being disrespectful, calling people out their names, etc., let me just let you know, over here I am not the one, okay? And I will quickly and swiftly delete and block if necessary, okay? I'm definitely open to having a dialogue and having a discussion, but if you're gonna come at somebody with some hostility, be sure, be aware that I'm gonna come back with hostility as well. I don't play that game. I'm not gonna coddle you. I'm not your mom, not your girlfriend. I don't care about your feelings, okay? I don't give a damn about your feelings. But make sure you don't disrespect me. I'm not gonna disrespect you. And hopefully that's clear, okay? So anyone that wants to come with their hotepery and, start saying this and this, nah, I don't play that game. I don't play that over here. So take that elsewhere, okay? Hopefully that's clear. And hopefully, like I said, we can have a fruitful and robust conversation. So let's get started. So we're going to break down a few things, and this is just for us to have a better context about everything, and this is not to insult anyone's intelligence in any way, okay? So firstly, we're going to break down the word patriarchy. We live in a patriarchal society. 80%, it's 80 to 85, let's just stick with 85% of the world's population is patriarchal, meaning that it's male-headed and it is run for the most part by men. And we can see that within our society. So if you're from the US, you can see that within the US structure. Let's just look at the Constitution, for example, the founding fathers. We know there's a lot that goes into the Americas and the US specifically, but just look at the Constitution, right? Or here, for example, I'm living in France. Within their Constitution, the three words that surmise the French is liberty, fraternity, and equality. Okay, fraternity meaning brotherhood, right? We never hear sorority in these things, right? So, let's just give you an example of what that is. Next, we're going to define misogyny. Misogyny is basically the hatred and disdain for women, right? Example of misogyny. Let's use T.I. T.I. I think is a great example of someone that's very misogynistic. There are a lot of people that are misogynistic, and some women who actually internalize misogyny, who have internalized misogyny. That does exist as well. But if we were to use T.I., for example, and other men that probably think along these lines, who are going to say things like, yeah, I take my daughter to get her hymen checked every year, and I want to control her body and know what's going on because I don't want her to end up with an ancient motherfucker like myself, because really that's what he is. And also saying things along the lines of his wife's pussy, his words, that's his. So regardless if she's tired or whatever, that's his. If he wants to have it, he'll have it. But then at the same time, you're over here disrespecting your child, your wife, by cheating on her openly. So that's an example of misogyny. Next, we're gonna define colorism and exoticism. So colorism, I think we all know what that is, and that is not specific to Black people. That colorism is something that's existed throughout societies. If we're going to look at the European context of it, so when they had, prior to the Renaissance, you had serfdoms. So within serfdoms, you knew that somebody was wealthy because they didn't work, they weren't out in the sun, and they were getting brown. They weren't getting tan, right? And wealth and lightness of skin went hand in hand. So if you're lighter skin, that means you're wealthy, you're well taken care of, you're not in the shade, and you took care of yourself. Whereas somebody that worked was poorer and darker, right? But now let's take this in a different scale where we're looking at it within different societies. So if we're looking at Black societies, we have colorism where there's light skin, red bone, dark skin, good hair, nappy, all of that. All of those go in hand. If we're looking at, let's say, India, there's different scales of brown, darkness, etc. And there's a lot of skin bleaching that happens there. There's a lot of skin bleaching that happens in other parts of Asia, East Asia, Africa, the continent, Middle East, etc. Right? Most parts of the world where you're going to have people bleaching their skin, there is an embedded system of colorism, right? So colorism isn't only for Black people. Okay, so we have that defined. And with exoticism, let's use the example of when 50 Cent and Little Shit, I call him 50 Shit, and little whatever his name is, Little Wayne, when they were having a discussion about basically Black women or this, trying to portray and push forth these tropes that Black women are and these prejudices that they have against Black women, saying, I'd rather go with this exotic girl because, she's different, she's this, she's that, and she's not like this Black girl because da-da-da-da. And then it's funny because Lil Wayne's daughter had to come out and say, look, my Black is beautiful, and had to defend herself because her dad was there basically saying negative things and co-signing negative things that somebody else was saying about Black women, right? So with exoticism, basically you're saying something that is different, so what is better, it's more attractive, it's more appealing in whatever way, okay? And also hoteps. I think most of you know what a hotep is. A hotep basically is a Black man who is for Black power, Black, all that. Basically wants to overturn white supremacy and have Black supremacy, basically. And when I say that, I also mean they want to have Black male supremacy, right? Because we know within white supremacy, white men are the heads of that. And if you were to overturn that, a hotep would like to have a Black man be in power and basically topple over white men, really. At the end of the day, Black men know that they benefit from patriarchy, right? This is the same as within racism or white supremacy. White people know they benefit from that. So if they benefit from it, why would they want to get rid of that? They're within the system that helps them out, right? This is the same when it comes to Black men. If you are within a system, patriarchy, where you benefit from the system, why would you want to get rid of that? That's beneficial for you. You get what I'm trying to say? So, making sure you guys understand that. And voila. And something else I want to break down, because this specific conversation, I think I've already said it, this is specific for cisgendered heterosexual Black men. This is who this conversation is for, correct? And a cisgender basically means that the sex that you're born into, so if you're born female and you identify as feminine, that means you're cisgendered female, right? If you are male, your sex is male and your gender corresponds and your gender is masculine, that means you're cisgendered. So if you are cisgendered, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're heterosexual, because you can be cisgendered and homosexual, whatever, cisgendered, right? So if you are cisgendered heterosexual Black men, this conversation is specifically for you. Okay? Also, something else that I failed to mention when I was talking about misogyny, because this is addressing Black men and this is kind of from a Black woman's perspective, I also have to address misogyny. Misogyny is specific. It's the hatred of, the disdain and hatred of Black women. And I know there's going to be a lot of you that are going to say, well, no, not all men are trash. We know that. Not all, but a lot. We know that. And like I said before, saying all men are trash, that is kind of a generality, but this is quite specific. And I've already said, for black men, it's even more specific because of the vitriol that they have against black women, right? And there's that famous quote, I think it's by Martin Luther King, where it says, if you turn a blind eye to injustice somewhere, you're part of the problem. I'm summarizing, but you know what I'm trying to say. Basically, if you're within a system that does benefit you, and you have friends who ain't shit, who are trash, who kind of portray these things I've already mentioned, and you don't ever speak up, you never say anything, you're part of the problem. So if you're not trash and your friends are trash, then you're just trash adjacent in my mind, because if you're not saying anything, you're not standing up, you're not doing anything, what makes you different? What makes you different? Please let me know. I would love to know. So for me personally, right, I am anti-patriarchy and patrilineality. Okay? I want to dismantle it, and I want to create a better future for the world, but I know I can't do that alone, and a lot of people are not going to think like me, and it's fine. But one thing that I've noticed, right, and this is something I've already mentioned, because men specifically benefit from patriarchy, and again, when I'm saying men, I'm not talking about trans men. I'm specifically focusing on cisgendered heterosexual men, right? Because men benefit from patriarchy, they do not, and especially black men, you don't want to dismantle a system like this. You want to weaponize it to help and benefit you. You want to overturn, topple over, so that black men or white men are not in charge anymore, and y'all are in charge, and you want to, have that power to be able to dictate and, and push forward whatever your ideas are, right? And for me, that is really a shame. And I say that because then, at the end of the day, what makes it different from some white supremacists? What makes a white supremacist different from a hotep? Apart from the racism aspect, right? Because there are a lot of ideas, unfortunately, that these two groups kind of have in mind, which would be transphobia, homophobia, etc., right? So I want to know what makes the difference. I know that seems a bit far-fetched, but if you think about it, right? Because you're both trying to maintain and hold on to this power, and there's certain groups and people that question your authority, it kind of makes you defensive, and you want to be like, I don't know, black, all black, but not this black, all this, but not this. You get what I'm trying to say? So what makes y'all different? An example that I want to use, right? Oftentimes when we talk about the civil rights movement, it's funny to see how when we look at the history books and we look at the faces of the civil rights movement, it's often going to be black men, right? And it seems that for whatever reason, there is a reason. It seems that the women who've done the brunt of the work, who've organized this, who've come together, who were supposed to speak at certain events and were told not to because they were women, or not to push forward the women's movement, etc. Their faces are just kind of erased from this whole thing, right? Except maybe Rosa Parks. But everybody else's face is kind of erased from the situation. And the example that I'm going to give is prior to the rise of the Black Power movement and the Civil Rights movement, etc. This is after Reconstruction, and this is kind of the era of Jim Crow, etc., right? There are black women facing a lot of rape and sexual violence at the hands of white men. And during this time, there were a lot of black women that came together and created organizations and tried many ways to fight against this. And these same women were the ones that helped build different organizations like the Black Panther, or, the civil rights movement in itself, right? And black women at the end of the day were the catalyst of the civil rights movement, but their stories have always been pushed to the side because we never want to focus on the black, on that. We just want to focus on a black initiative, but not anything relating to like a black woman's experience. If you're not aware of who Dorothy Height is, I would definitely recommend for you guys to research her. If it was not for this woman, the March on Washington would not have been, okay? And in the March of Washington, it was dominated, the people that spoke at this event was dominated by men. I believe there's one woman who spoke up, and I think she was speaking up about boycotting and It was boycotting or something to do with integrating into schools, etc. But for the most part, the March on Washington was dominated by men. And Dorothy, if it wasn't for her, like I said, this movement would not have existed, was not even given the opportunity to speak at this event. And it's funny because it's like, this kind of reminds me of, you know, Beyonce's song Upgrade You, where she said basically, in Upgrade You, Beyonce said, ran by the men, but the women keep the tempo, right? And she likes to take the lead role, or she'll let him take the lead role. And this kind of depicts what that movement was and what men tend to do within patriarchy. Women are kind of the mules or the driving force for a lot of these things, i.e. the Black Lives Matter movement right now. We are the mules, we're the driving force for this, but then you want to erase us and then have a man be the spokesperson for the Black community. And one of the individuals that I have to like reconcile with, and I still have to reconcile with, is Malcolm X. Of the revolutionaries, that is somebody I would identify with. However, when I was 13, I read the autobiography of Malcolm X, and you know, it was a good book, and I read it other times since. And reading that book, I have to come to grips with the fact that this man was a pimp. And this is the same man saying Black women are the most disrespected, denigrated, etc. women in the world. And he took part in that. And yes, perhaps he got enlightened and became better. But at the end of the day, this was a misogynistic person and treated women awful. You know, and I have to reconcile with the fact that this is a Black man who had ideas of, you know, trying to, you know, liberate his community, but then want to kind of erase his history with regards to how he treated women. You get what I'm trying to say? And I feel like there's a lot of Black men currently who kind of have these ideologies, i.e. the Elijah Muhammad's, etc. Or let's look at Booker T. Washington, right? Who have these misogynistic past, these misogynistic ideologies, but then want to fight for the Black, you know, the Black community. But then it's like, well, are Black women a part of this community? Because if you're fighting for the Black community, do you not care about us? Because at the end of the day, a Black woman brought you into this world, okay? A Black woman brought you into this world, so you should have the most respect for her. But do you? And that's the thing that, as Black women, we have to reconcile with these, because it's so frustrating. It's like, I mean, I gotta side-eye you because, bitch, you saying all this stuff, but you don't give a fuck about my issues. I mean, Am I a part of this community when you're talking about this? So one other thing I needed to add, Dorothy White was actually known as the godmother of the civil rights movement. I would really urge you guys to research her and learn more about her. And it's a shame that in the history books we don't know a lot about her, or of the many women who sacrificed their life, who went to bat to make sure the civil rights movement was what it was. And it's a shame that we don't know more about these people, about these women. And again, back to Black men wanting to be the spokespeople or the spokesmen for the Black community. I find it ironic, because it's like, do you want to be the spokespeople for the Black community, as in the entirety of the community, or just what Black men care about? Which one is it? Because it's not particularly clear to me. You let me know, because I'm not sure. Adding more to that, let's use the example of affluent Black men. Okay, so with regards to these affluent Black men who like to be the spokespeople for the Black community, for me, there's such a huge disconnect, right? So at one point you're talking about the Black community, but then it's like, what does that really involve? Because for me, when you talk about the Black community, you're not including trans people, you're not including gay people, you're just talking about Black men and their issues. What else are you talking about that's really affecting the Black community? Right? So I'm not sure exactly what Ice Cube is trying to do with his thing with regards to MAGA or the Trump admin, or, you know, the little things that these other men like to say, like the Diddy's or the T.I.'s, etc. All these little ridiculous things that they like to say when they like to speak for the community. It's like they have such a huge disconnect, right? Because they have money, right? And because now they're benefiting from capitalism, they don't really think about the community at large. It's really just what's going to benefit them and their pockets. Let's use the example for T.I. You know, when people were protesting for Black Lives Matter after George Floyd was murdered, right? when he came out to speak, basically to protect the properties, T.I. was like, this is the mecca of the black community, etc. But then Atlanta is one of the states with the highest level of income disparities, right? So when you're talking about this is the mecca for black people, is this the mecca for rich black people? Because if there's such a huge income disparity in Atlanta, and you're talking about this is the mecca, save save the city, you don't care about black people at the core, right? All you care about right now is your pockets, because you're benefiting from capitalism. So for me, there's a huge disconnect when you're talking about the black community. What are you talking about? Are you really talking about the people? Because if you're talking about the people, what are you doing to benefit them? With regards to using these black men as an example, when they like to kind of talk out of their ass and say let's talk about the community and do blah 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 for the community, let's use examples of black women that are actually about it, right? So we have Megan Thee Stallion. I'm going to go into her a little bit more because as you've seen in the photo, the patron saints of black men are trash, I included T.I., Tory Lanez, and 50 Shit, right? You saw that. They're there for a reason. But now let's use Megan Thee Stallion for an example, right? So Megan Thee Stallion, because something so traumatic happened to her that many black men made fun of her for and did not believe her because she wasn't worthy of being a victim, has created a movement now called Protect Black Women, right? She's about it. She's doing something for her community at large, right? And then we have, let's use Beyonce, right? Beyonce is a philanthropist, right? She's always donated stuff. Or let's use the likes of Oprah's, right? Buying billboard with regards to Breonna Taylor. When we look at the difference between affluent black women versus affluent black men, there is a big difference. Here, they're about it. They're doing something that directly affects their community. I don't know what black men are doing. From what I know, I feel like they're just trying to make more money. Use other people. Let's use Diddy, for example. Use people, don't pay people what they're worth, and then get richer. Again, back when I was saying, with regards to white supremacy, right? It's like white supremacists do the same thing. Y'all are kind of doing the same thing. What makes you different? So now I want to go into more detail with regard to the patron saints of black men are trash. Let's use T.I. If anyone here is familiar with In Living Color, you'll recall the prison guy. I believe his name, I wrote it down because I couldn't remember. His name was Oswald Bates. Okay, he was the guy in prison who spoke like a dictionary, who just said stuff because it sounded cool and didn't really know how to use certain words correctly. And T.I. is basically Oswald Bates. Go watch a clip of this. It's really funny, actually. Go watch it, and then you come back and tell me what you think. Did I lie? But back to T.I. and his misogyny and his misogynoir. This is the man, which I said earlier, who was gloating and saying that, yes, every year I take my daughter to go get her hymen checked. Embarrassing your daughter, making it seem like you control your daughter's body. And this young woman is 18, right? But then you're the same one also pushing your young kids, your young boys, to start relationships and have sex. I don't know if you're the likes with little Boujee or Boujee, whatever his name is, where you're having grown women rape your children. I don't know if you're at that end or that extreme, but it's like you see the dichotomy, the difference in how you would treat your girl child versus your boy child, right? Because the guy's a patriarchy, you must control this one and let this other one have so much freedom and do whatever he pleases. Right? And again, this is the same one saying, and I remember this, I saw this clip and I was so disgusted. He basically said, Tiny's pussy is his. Whenever he wants it, he has access to it. Whenever he wants it, he has access to it. Excuse me? And there's a lot of you that are thinking this way. And I'm just like, bitch, what? And this is where it comes in, where you're like objectifying women. Women are just a tool for you. No. Okay? That is not the way it is. You came from a woman, okay? You should have nothing but respect for your woman, right? But to say something in the likes of, that's my pussy, I need to have access to when I want to, and then you're the same one here walking around having footage of you cheating on your partner over and over and over again? Really? And you want to speak for the black man, or for the black community? Please, cut it out and shut up. Just go sit somewhere, please. Please. And Tory ain't shit. Lanez. I am so happy that he has been charged, and I hope he will get the maximum years for his crime that he did. Okay? There are so many of you that questioned what happened to Megan Thee Stallion, that said she is not a victim. She provoked him to do that. She provoked him to shoot her in her feet. Wow. So black women are literally nothing to you. We are just disposable. Now let's use a scenario, right? If this situation had been Kylie, if Tory Lanez had shot Kylie, do you think this would have happened the same way? Please let me know. Do you really think things would have gone down the same way? Do you think he would have been in jail already, right? And this is where we have to come back with regards to patriarchy and white supremacy. Because currently, as we know it, patriarchal society, white supremacist society, white men are at the head of society, right? They're not going to allow someone to do anything to their women. And I said, let's use an example with Emmett Till. So a white woman can accuse a child for doing absolutely nothing to her, and he is brutalized, killed, and the people that did harm to him walk free, scotch-free, right? This is how white supremacy benefits white women, right? Because their men got their backs. You see what I'm trying to say? So if Tory Lanez had shot up Kylie Jenner, please, we wouldn't hear shit about this. Y'all would not be coming to Kylie Jenner saying, oh my God, it's your fault. You poor white girl. He did that. He should have done that, right? But when it's a black girl, oh, she's supposed to just accept all the brutalization that you're supposed to give her. She's supposed to accept all the misogyny, everything, take it all on, and then just shut her mouth and not say anything. No, that is not going to happen. I wish Megan had filed when it happened, but you know what? The universe is taking care of it, and I hope that it will take care of him, because this is some bullshit. And for those of you that are still playing his music, that are still saying all these positive things about him, like, really? And this kind of makes me think of, when somebody's talking about Bill Cosby, the rapist, you talk about R. Kelly, the rapist and the pedophile. When we're talking about these men, it's like, you guys are trying to bring the black man down, or trying to bring the black man down. No, I don't give a fuck he's black or not. If he's a pedophile, if he's a rapist, put his ass in jail. Put him in jail. Black or not. Just like, what's his name? That white man, I don't know, the white man that was raping all the women, he's the face of the Me Too movement. Him, put him in jail. I don't give a fuck he's black, white, or whatever. You've done a crime, be in jail. I'm not going to go to bat for you just because you're black, okay? And that's where, again, because y'all just want black patriarchy, black men patriarchy, you don't care that black men are doing horrible things to women. You're just like, it's a black, no, you're trying to bring the black man down. No. What about us? Do we not matter to you? I don't know if Lil Wayne, Lil Wayne, T.I., whatever, what's his name, Tory Lanez, I don't know if they suffer from the, Napoleon complex, and that's why they feel like, because I am man, I'm a show, I am man. Oh, yes, Jane, sit here, do this, have many in him, fuck, do what. I don't know if it's because of the Napoleon complex why they feel like they have to act out and, show out and say, yeah, I'm a man, I got this, I do this, I this. Like, girl, come on now. I can't even speak English now. I'm like, arrête ça. Parce que c'est débile et c'est dégueulasse. D'accord? So what I said was, it's disgusting and it's childish. Like, stop it. 50 Cent, his colorist ways. I've already talked about him in the conversation he had with Lil Wayne when they were going down talking about black women, and using the tropes of what a black woman is and how we don't date them and all that stuff, all these little bullshit that you guys like to say. And him also being one of the men, him and T.I., poking fun at the Megan Thee Stallion, saying Megan Thee Stallion situation when Tory Lanez shot her, saying, let's give him a chance, it probably didn't happen, or she provoked him, or whatever, right? These men constantly trolling black women, constantly coming for black women. What joy do you get out of this? It's so despicable. I do not understand. What joy do you get out of this? Of always bringing down black women, always saying negative things about black women, and being harmful, violent towards black women. What do you gain from this? Do you feel better as a man? Of all the other ethnicities that you've seen that benefit from patriarchy, what other ethnic group do things like this to their women? Explain this to me. Do you know? Because I don't. I sure as hell don't. A couple of things I want to touch on back with regards to, how black women are always like the forefront of the movement of civil rights, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. With regards to the Black Lives Matter movement, we know that black women created this movement, right? Black women putting in the work, as always, created this movement. And when there have been many black people that have been killed by the hands of the police, as George Floyd, Sandra Bland, Tamir Rice, etc., Breonna Taylor. When we're speaking up about these people that have been killed and we're protesting, one of the things that I think is so sad, and for me, it's kind of put me in a state where I'm like, you know what? If I'm not receiving reciprocity, I'm not going to go to bat for people that are not going to go to bat for me, right? So you saw the world came together with regards to George Floyd, right? And obviously that was because we saw the crime, we saw the videotape of him being killed in front of our eyes, we saw that, and that did something to people, right? But when I feel like it's a black woman who's experienced this brutality, I feel like we don't get the same level of, vigor and force behind us, like people fighting for us and going to bat for us. I feel like we don't get the same. And we like I've been saying, we go to bat for people. We put in the work. We do it. But then when it's things happening for us, instead, let's use Breonna Taylor as an example. Y'all want to, use her for likes, for clickbaits, etc. But y'all aren't really doing nothing. This is not even specific to like black men, right? This is just kind of like maybe the black community or the other communities who are like basically using her name just to make it seem like they're woke and they're about it, fighting for her and stuff like that. It's like when things happen to black women, no one has our back. Black women, we have each other's back, but nobody else has our back. And we have everybody's back, but no one got us like that. And it's a shame. And for me, I'm at a stage where reciprocity, if I'm going to give what I get. You get what I'm trying to say? So if I'm not getting good, I'm not your reciprocity, and I'm just going to leave it at that. I'm going to use an example of someone who her murder really, it touched me and it pissed me off. So I don't want to mess up her name. Oluwatoyin Salu, aka Tony. She was a 19-year-old young woman who was raped and murdered by a black man. Okay? And prior to her murder, she went on Twitter and was talking about, I've been raped. People are basically saying, shut up, whatever, because she was fighting for black women's rights. She was fighting for against sexual violence, trans rights, etc., etc. And she was horribly brutalized and killed and raped by the hands of a black man. What did y'all do about it? Did y'all protest for her? Did y'all say something about it? What did y'all do about it? Because I know black men were talking about it. What did y'all do about it? Touching on transphobia and homophobia, one of the things that it really does piss me off. So I don't know if this is just because trans people or gay people like question your sexuality and your masculinity in whatever way, shape, or form, but I've never understood why black men, and other groups of men do this as well, right? But black men in particular are so harsh and so evil with regards to gay and trans folk. If you've ever seen this documentary, I hope it's on Netflix. If it's not, find it. It's called Paris is Burning. It's a documentary about voguing and gay and trans culture in the 80s, I believe, in New York. And when you get to the end of this film and you see how a lot of the people that are no longer, and what happened to them, you're like, wow. And this is because of intimate partner violence. So they're black men who may be attracted to trans folk or gay folk or whatever, or who are down low and, can't come to terms with that. And because you have to protect your masculinity at all costs, it begets you killing someone? Because for me, I've never understood that. I really don't. Like, how does someone's, sexuality, how does someone's being put your sexuality, your being into question, and because of that, you have to harm them? I've never understood that. And that kind of, for me, that also goes into play with the violence that black men show towards black women. And oftentimes when we have the saying black on black crime, which is bullshit because it really doesn't exist, because we're going to say black on black crime, we have to say white on white crime. It's basically proximity crime, okay? The people that you're in close proximity with, those are the ones that the crime is going to be, that the crime is going to be committed against, right? So black on black crime, white on white, that shit don't exist, okay? So when it comes to violence against women, 1 in 4 women is raped in her lifetime. 1 in 4. 25% at least of women are going to be raped in their lifetime, right? And when it comes to intimate partner violence, i.e. domestic violence, emotional abuse, etc., I don't remember the number anymore, but I'm sure it's even higher than that. Okay? And brown and black women get the brunt of that the most, right? So their partners are the ones causing the most harm to them. So do you feel more like a man because you were able to beat and knock out a woman or shoot up her foot? You feel better about yourself now? And the last thing that I want to talk about, and I think this is something that most women are obviously, most heterosexual women who you interact with are going to notice the most, right? In relationships with a black man, or a black man especially that's trash, there is a Def Jam poetry that I saw when I was in university years ago. It's called To All the Men I Loved Before, and it's by Maida Del Val, and this is how it starts. We are not your mothers. You have been weaned from the breast of a woman for years, yet you come to us wounded and half filled with promises you can only keep half the time, trying to suckle our sense of self dry. Go watch that. I'm going to link that below. That's a really, really dope poem. And that specific phrase, the way she starts that, is so poignant and it's so perfect to transition to what I want to talk about. So when men come in relationships with women, it's like y'all want to just throw and just dump all of your traumas on us. You want to unload all of your pain on us. And then women, and especially ones that don't know no better or don't have higher value for themselves, accept this and try to basically mother you. Because at the end of the day, it's like you stop sucking for your mom's boobs and now you want a new one to suck on that will take care of you and, help coddle you and make you feel better about yourself and not emasculate you so you could feel better and feel like a man, right? I think a really, really good movie to use, and maybe I should break this movie down. I'm sure a lot of you have seen the movie Baby Boy, right? If that is not the perfection of fucking ain't trash and trauma, toxicity, everything in one, that is like the perfect movie for this, right? So we know how Baby Boy is. He lives at home with his mom. He has his girl, and he is just, he ain't shit, really, right? And we see his friend who ain't shit either, who beats on his girl. Like, girl, I should fucking dissect that movie because that's a really good one. But you see what I'm trying to say with that example, right? So you're coming to us, dumping all of your emotional baggages on us instead of going to therapy and dealing with your trauma and dealing with your issue. I believe everybody needs to go to trauma. I think it would be beneficial for everyone. But instead of dealing with your stuff by yourself, so you find your peace and your happiness, you want to come and disturb the peace and happiness of somebody else, right? For me personally, I don't know about anybody else, I don't do that. No, like, I have my peace and my joy within me, and whoever comes into my life is just going to add an abundance to that, right? But I'm not here to deal with your trauma. Like, you have counseling for that, you have therapists for that, like, we can help build and grow, but there's not going to be a relationship where I'm going to be, or anyone should even deal with toxicity, right? That's just my point of view about that. But a lot of men like to come and dump all of their crap on their women, And in many ways, by doing that, it's you're using and you're abusing your women. You may not, and something I've always said, right? Abuse does not have to come in a physical sense, right? There is a mental and emotional abuse, right? I recently did a video where I covered Jenny Mai's stand on submission on the reel. You can check that out here. And in that video, I gave my point of view about it and said that basically for me, she was conflating her ideas of what submission is versus partnership. And for me personally, I value a partnership where we're building each other up and we're learning from each other, etc. Not someone being superior to another person. And again, this is how patriarchy builds back into this, right? So a lot of men, especially black men that are trash, like to feel like the man of the house, like to feel like they're not being emasculated. And if there's a woman that is more educated, or if there's a woman that's making more money than them or whatever, they want to feel more like a man. So they would like the woman to feel small, right? By basically them being able to dictate over her in any way, shape, or form. And again, for me, I have to ask, what makes you different from a white supremacist? I have to continue asking that, because are you not basically doing the same thing? I know that seems harsh, I know, but think about that. You get what I'm trying to say? It's like, for you to feel better, for you to feel like a man, for you to feel not emasculated and feel, yeah, Jane, like, yo, you can't do this, why? Like a depiction of like this thing that I just talked about of like you wanting to feel like a man, etc., etc. If you I'm sure you know this song by Beyonce, Flawless. Remember in Flawless she used an excerpt from a TED Talk by one of my favorite authors, Chimamanda Ngozi. I can't think of her last name. Chimamanda Ngozi. I'm gonna link that video below as well, but it was a TED Talk saying we should all be feminists. And that's a really, really good TED Talk. I would urge you guys to watch that and listen to it just for you to better understand. But in that, she's basically saying how we have these expectations of what a girl should be versus what a boy should be, and how we end up creating these ain't shit men, basically. She didn't say that, basically. But basically, that, right? So I really, really hope that this dialogue is going to be fruitful. Like I've said earlier, any of you that want to come with your bullshit of like, oh no, you basically just a Candace Owens, or you've been indoctrinated and you don't know what you're talking about, and read this Malcolm X this and blah blah blah. Take your hotepery elsewhere. I'm not the one. I don't got the time for you today. Okay, take it elsewhere. Any disrespectful shit, I'm gonna block you and delete you with swiftness, because I don't play that. Okay, but like I said, we can definitely have a dialogue about this. But I really have to talk about these things because it's something that I've noticed, and I notice all the time. And one of the things that I think is even funnier, like, you know what I'm saying, black men ain't shit or are trash. Girl, black Frenchmen are the worst of the worst. The worst of the worst in my personal experience. But if y'all want a video for that, let me know, and I can do another video about that at a later date. But I really just want to talk about these issues. I know this is gonna be a long ass video, but hey, sit down, take a cup of have a cup of tea, drink some. And for the black men that are in here that want to actually have a dialogue and talk, please let's have a discussion below. Keep it respectful. But anyways, that is everything that I have to talk about today. If there's anything that I forgot, I may do a part 2 to this. But for today, this is all really I have to say. I hope y'all are doing well. Please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and help your girl get to 5,000 subscribers. And I'll see y'all soon for a new video. Peace out, bisous, and hugs.
Pull up, pull up, I pull up, pull up, I pull up, I pull up.